Funny, you can see my daughter when she comes into the office. She always likes to make decorations for the office walls. So we went to Chick-fil-A last time, so she's got a Chick-fil-A emblem up there. So let me tell you a little bit about what this video is going to be about. We're going to talk about while you're on the appointment, going into a great level of detail on something really stupid, something not that important, so that you can, and you're going to do this a couple different times during the appointment, and you're going to do it when you follow up the appointment as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to establish a pattern of reaching out to them, to the person you're trying to prospect to, with legitimate reasons, therefore increasing the number of times that you've made a contact with them. That's one way to build rapport. The other way is to answer questions that they don't know to ask. That's a big one. And when you give them these very detailed solutions to problems that don't exist and might not come up, but you have that set up in your game plan to cover all those rare incidents, then the question of whether you're doing your job to get the easy stuff done never comes up. And you're going to explain this stuff to your client and say, hey, listen, I can go over anything in any manner that you want. I can give you a quick synopsis and show you what we need to do to get the deal moving forward. I can give you like a brief summary. So I can just let you know, tell you what you need to do, or I can give you a summary, or I can go into a very detailed synopsis. Let me just give you a detailed synopsis of how I personally work lockboxes. So on an occupied property, you must have, as per the rules, an electronic lockbox as opposed to a combination box. So I put that electronic lockbox on there, and I give the access information to the showing service, who gives it to the agents, who get authorization through their real estate license to access that box only during the time that you, the seller, have approved through text message. Does that sound good? And they're like, yeah, okay. Now, what I do also, because it's tied to a cell phone, which is tied to a battery, which is tied to Bluetooth and a cell phone signal service. So you could have some user error in there. So what I like to do as well, in case the battery dies on the lockbox and it's my fault, even though I change them every 2 years and they're good for 5 years, so they say, you could still have a problem. So what I do is I'll put on another location of the house, I will put a cable lock, typically like a bike cable, like maybe on a pillar to a front porch, or I might put that on a deck post, or maybe a porch railing, something of that nature. And I'll put a combination box on there, and I let them know that combination box on there is for their convenience. If they lock themselves out of the house, they call me, I give them the code. If they have a contractor or a neighbor that needs to come by to let a dog out for them, they can give them the code. That's on them. I will only use it to get access to an authorized agent in the event that there is some sort of a technical difficulty with the electronic lockbox. So do you see how I went with a serious overkill on how I set up a lockbox? And then I even go into another thing of saying, and this is an important part, saying that when the lockbox is on the door, a lot of times it gets caught in the door jamb and messes with sometimes it even rips the weather stripping. I personally don't like putting them on the doorknob, for that reason, but two, if that seller wanted his house sold in 5 days and it's been 10 days, every time they grab that door, I don't want them thinking about me with any type of a negative thought on day 10 on the market, because they're expecting the 2022, day 5 on the market, you've got multiple offers, and 2025, it's a different story. So there's little reasons why you're adding all these things to what ultimately is your presentation, and your presentation is your performance. You're a performer. You're interviewing for a job each and every time you go out there. And don't worry about the multiple agent interview. Encourage the multiple agent interview. So another thing that I do when it's only me going on the appointment, and the seller wants to hire me, but they're not ready to make a decision yet, I ask them if they've talked to other agents. And I ask them to set up a couple of interviews. Here's the reality. Each and every time I've been hired and they didn't interview somebody else, some of the normal stuff that I do comes into question. And it's kind of annoying, because a question is a phone call that comes into me that I didn't anticipate, and I like to book my schedule out. So now I've got to take time away from something that I planned on doing to appease a request for a question that was unanswered. I was unable to answer the question that the person had before they asked it. So that's one of the reasons why I like to be very detailed in my responses to people, so that they know that they truly know that I've got everything covered. Because anytime they ask me a question, I can go really into depth and explain the behind the scene reasons why things work the way they work. Like, can you explain to it's pretty simple stuff, but can you explain to a buyer why the lender is asking them for stuff, on a 40-day contract to close, the lender's asking them for stuff on day 37. And they say to you as the agent, they say, hey, why have they not reached out to me for the last 3 weeks and asked me for these documents? Now I've got all my stuff packed up, I'm in the process of moving, and they're asking me for these documents. So if you can explain the situation, it lets them have an understanding. Now I'll one up that. If you can explain the frustrations of what's going to happen in the process before that ever actually happens in the process, and when it comes up, the person's like, yeah, Jimmy told me you were going to be asking me for documents 3 days prior to our closing. Don't worry about it. I got you covered. Do you see the difference there? Those are the little things that when you add all of them up, it separates the good, brings you up to the level of great. So don't forget to always add the details into your presentation and fine tune it. Your presentation is your performance. If you were, Joe Rogan, a stand-up comedian, you would have that 30-minute show that you do, and you would fine tune it. You would tweak your jokes depending on the audience reaction. You are doing nothing different. You're a professional job interviewer, and you're interviewing for a job. When you look at it with that mindset, it becomes kind of exciting, and you'll see some of the same names out there over and over, and you're like, oh, okay, I know who I'm up against now. I beat them last time. Or they beat me. Oh, yeah, but they were related to the person. So you kind of feel like you give yourself a little bit of a pass for that. Anyway, I wish you the best of luck. Go ahead and like and subscribe to the video. And I've got within the next 4 or 5 videos that pop out, I'm going to be dropping a little bit of a bomb. And it's going to be some really good stuff. And it's what this is all about. Is good stuff and taking it to the next level and letting you figure out. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that in the next video. Letting you figure out what type of business you want to run, because there's a lot of different ways to run it. So we'll jump into that in a moment.